Greetings, fellow citizens of Disneyland. Brickey here. This week on the 13th hour, where we look back at the week in Disneyland news, we're going to do a little something different. I'm going to have my Club 1313 member Tony Mendez from Chicago, Illinois on with me. We're going to look at what we believe to expect as a fan who lives near or far with the first year, first 100 days, and the first 50 to 100 days going up to Disneyland reopening, buying tickets, how that first year will feel. Hopefully today's conversation will take a little bit of that anxiety that you may be feeling as a fan, whether you live down the street or on the other side of the country, who's desperate to get back into Disneyland. Hope today's conversation helps you just sort of calm down, breathe it in, and just say, okay, there is going to be a way for me and my friends and my family to get back into the park and get back to having good times. Hope you enjoyed today's special episode of the 13th Hour, where each and every Friday, the 13th hour of the day, we look back at the week of Disneyland news. Tony Mendez, welcome to the 13th Hour, sir.
Thank you so much for having me. This is quite the honor, I have to admit.
My first guest to be on the 13th Hour with me, and I thought it would be very important to, in a week where it's a little bit complicated, for me to go live. So if you're over in the chat right now, yes, this is not live. Sorry to ruin your magical day. But I thought it was very important, as I brought on my first guest, is to actually talk to a fan that isn't a local fan, a remote fan, somebody that lives in Chicago, which, dare I say, kind of puts you dead middle between both California and Walt Disney World. I know Walt Disney World is obviously a much more affordable trip for you just because Florida is such a main hub. There's so much extra land there, so many more hotels. California, not the easiest or cheapest place to get to. So let's just start right here. A lot of the Disney channels that we all watch on YouTube, and I know you're a big YouTube fan like I am, these channels are mostly done by locals. And one of the things that I've learned from reading all the comments from all the videos that I publish is there are a lot of APs that don't necessarily live, within a tri-county radius of the parks. And there's a lot of hardcore fans that are sort of dispersed in the middle. And I guess when you kind of think about it, it would make sense that a lot of the people that consume this content aren't the people that used to have that constant drip of the parks right down the street from their home. So let's just get started right here today. You are in the middle of America, up there at the top, just easily looking down to the left and right of both of our beloved parks. You're watching a lot of videos with people like me complaining, will I still be able to get in every day that I want to, when you've been living on what? How many times did you go to the parks in 2019, the last year of normalcy?
Yeah, so I'll say DesignerCon 2019 was the last time that I was at Disneyland proper.
Yep.
At the resort. So that was like November, I believe, October, something around there.
Yeah, that was
and
November.
Then, yeah, November. Yeah, and it was a great trip. Everything was awesome. I was like, oh, cool, I'll be back. And then, of course, and then literally right after that in January, I went to Walt Disney World.
Yeah.
And I know you're talking, strictly some AP news here and what it's like to, to gauge AP interest, that sort of thing. Well, Mark, I made the decision last year, a big decision for me. This is like, my heart will always be with Disneyland. Disneyland is my home park.
I appreciate that.
As you know, because I am in that middle ground, sometimes it is, we'll say, cost effective to go to the less, the inferior park, Walt Disney World. And I love Walt Disney World. It's fantastic, but it's not Disneyland.
Yeah, I mean, Roy's Unoriginal Magic Kingdom. I don't want to trash on it too much because I do understand, and I have to say, over the last tenure of months, I have gained such more respect for Walt Disney World as I've started to fall in love with a couple of vloggers out there and watch their videos on the regular. Like, thank God that it's still going. And I ultimately do understand that Disneyland is a very different experience. And I normally cover it in a way where, like, I know that it feels great to come as an out-of-towner because, don't forget, my first 2 years of loving the park was as an out-of-towner. Every time I came to California, it was a must to go to Disneyland. But it really changes and it really sort of settles in when you become a local, and also, dare I say, as you start to develop your own set of Disneyland friends. So I will say that I've been a little bit unfair to Walt Disney World because I'm kind of like fallen in love with it every YouTube video after the other.
Yeah, and I definitely appreciate it. And it's one of those things where, like I said, because I'm right in the middle, it's more cost effective for me if
Yeah,
I go down there. I feel like I can spend half the amount of money I would if I was in California
for
and
sure.
have like the ultimate baller trip down there. Like
Yeah.
seriously, it's that much of a gap. So I made this massive decision where I said, you know what, this is it. I'm at one of these parks at least 4 times a year. I said, so I'm gonna do the right thing and become an annual pass holder myself.
So
So
hold on,
this
stop
is
right here though. I wish that's what my annual pass looked like because, and sorry for the green screen, but this thing is trash. This thing looks like
oh yeah,
this looks like I belong to like a children's fitness center, like a
yeah.
one
I
of those
mean, it's
trampoline
cool
places.
if you like the Muppet Babies, but like mine looks legit. So I got that in January of last year.
Yeah.
I got to go on Rise of the Resistance, and I said, all right, I will be back here pretty soon. And then everything kind of fell apart. So I got to use my annual pass. I believe it's $1,400.
Yeah.
One time. It actually expires at the end of this month. So if I somehow get vaccinated between now and the next 10 days or so,
Not
I
happening.
can still make a rip on my card.
Not
But
happening. So let's
it's one of those things where it's like the peace of mind of just having it in my wallet, I guess.
Yeah, I mean that's what I love about the AP, right? Is it gives you essentially, like, I love to refer to it as the keys to the kingdom. You know that you're able to go whenever. So let's just pause here real quick. I want to get a read on this. Walt Disney World did open up mid-year. A lot of people like myself said it won't last 6 weeks. It has last the duration, although it could be a lot to do with just sort of how overall that state's being ran. Different topic for a different time. But even though you have a pass to Walt Disney World, what was stopping you from, you don't have to get on a plane, which I've heard referred to as a tube full of demons, but what was stopping you from road tripping down to Florida and actually ripping the park? Did you just not feel comfortable doing it this year?
Yeah, it was just it was like either way for me wouldn't work until I knew I was vaccinated and I could wear my mask and feel comfortable. That
Yeah.
was what was entirely important to me.
Yeah.
And not that it's honestly, it seems like Disney is the one company where they seem to be managing it pretty well. I mean, everything I've ever seen of the parks and heard is they've been doing a phenomenal job on both coasts. I mean, obviously Disneyland isn't open, but DCA, it looks fantastic. I mean, it looks like exactly the kind of people I want to be around when I'm there. So
I sound like a broken
yeah,
record
that
by
was it.
saying it, but it is the safest place wherever I go. I go to a Whole Foods. I don't feel that same level of safety. So yeah, I go to the dog park and I don't feel that same level of safety, and mostly because I'm at the dog park and that's where I fight a lot. But yeah, it is they have done a really great job of doing it. And the thing is like kind of what has made me feel a little bit better about going out into the real world and living my life is watching the vlogging that's happening in Florida, because you just think like, okay, there's like thousands of people sort of cohabitating for the day, in this melting pot of people of all interests, all demos, all health, all backgrounds. And, it doesn't seem like you're seeing anybody like fall over into the rivers of America and be like, go on without me. I can't go on. And not that I don't think that COVID's real or severe, because I absolutely do. And I do think masks are important. And I'm not a denier, but it has been nice to slowly watch that, be like, this looks weird, to now being like, oh, it looks safe and normal.
Yeah, and every once in a while, like I'll catch like, here's some controversial pictures of this bottleneck. Look how many people are stuck in this line.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, I get it. But I feel like generally for the most part, everything I've seen looks great. So as soon as I get that sweet vaccine in my veins,
Ooh.
I will probably hop on a plane and I will be out there as soon as possible. So we'll see.
Prick me, Mickey. I'm saying right now, let me drive. I so badly. I'm actually a LA resident. I wish I was an Orange County resident, because I would just love to historically be like, and that's when I got my vaccine at the Disneyland parking lot. Like, I think I might actually have to go to Dodger Stadium. So go Dodgers. But my dream, my fantasy is to get my vaccine down at the Disneyland Resort. But let's sort of flip over here, right? So you're an AP holder to some degree, never really got to live the lifestyle, but you have the AP. What is your big concern right now as a remote fan? And speaking for remote fans everywhere, like, we see so much of the YouTube content skewed towards, like Fresh Baked Dave, right? Like if Fresh Baked Dave can't just rip the park whenever he wants to, obviously that's going to bottleneck his entire system of how he runs his career, or, you know, his secondary career, his YouTube channel. So when the news broke and like every YouTuber essentially went live, I waited a couple of hours, broke down the statement, and tried to, like, you know, have a little bit of reason in there. But a lot of the videos, you could clearly read through it as people were hitting two panic buttons. There's a panic button on my fandom. You know, this is going to make my life feel different forever. But there's a panic button on my content creation or my channel, right? Like, how am I still going to be able to serve this community, this thing that I've been building, when maybe I might only be able to get there a month? And I mean, I went straight into planning mode, but that's sort of a very, like, that's too spoiled, you know, very first class, first world problems to have. How am I going to get to Disneyland all the time? And how am I going to build my YouTube channel? But what's the vibe as somebody who has this concern where, you know, flights and hotels and vacation days are concerned? What do you think most regional or distant fans, I should say, are feeling right now? Like, what's the stress for you?
Yeah, I mean, if I was a Disneyland annual pass holder and I saw that notification, I had the same knee-jerk reaction as everybody else, where I was like, "Oh man, this is bad. Like, this is crazy. I can't believe." And then you're like, all right, take it easy. Just calm down. Let's pump the brakes and let's read through it." And honestly, your video was the one that helped the most, because
Thank you.
I have this thing where I will read something multiple times, and sometimes I still don't pick up on, you know, the verbiage. So it was, I'm glad you had put that out there, because you broke it down sentence by sentence and kind of gave a in between the lines breakdown of, this is what's happening. You know, it's not going away entirely. It's not going away forever, which is, I think, the issue that everybody had. So if it's me and I'm an annual pass holder for Disneyland and I don't live in that region, I would be cautiously optimistic. I'd say, you know what, that sucks. I mean, who doesn't like having that complete freedom of, hey, I pay X amount of dollars a year and I can go into the park whenever I please, right?
Yeah.
But it'll be structured differently, but in a roundabout way, the same thing, right?
I think too, there was a little bit of a misconception, and it was one of those moments where you don't realize how much some people resent you or hate you until you fall apart hard times, and like, I'm going to go ahead and kick them while they're down. And there was so much AP venom out there, you know, from people that just hate annual pass holders in relationship to Disneyland, because they see us as being the ones that have flooded the park and ruined the park. But to them, I say, it's Disneyland that flooded the park and ruined the park. You can't blame the customer. We don't run the corporation. We're not in charge of the front gate. Disneyland is in charge of the front gate. And at any time, they could have modified those blackout dates to bring it down 5, 10,000, 15,000 guests a day. And something I've been trying to, you know, sort of like take all the air out of the balloon in the channel here is, if you think that annual passes go away, and I don't believe that they are away, we'll get to that in a minute. But if you just think suddenly the AP program cancels and you'll be able to go to a Disneyland where it's like, you know, Peter Pan at noon is a walk-on, and they don't need boarding groups for Rise of the Resistance. And if you feel like taking a nap on Main Street, you can just lay on the sidewalk and sunbathe, and nobody will step on you, and you can do whatever you want to. You're insane. Disney will always try to figure out a way to get somewhere over the 60, 70, 75%. Whatever the attendance is allowed for that day, they will always try to hit that spot, which I kind of feel like where day splitting and the reason why I fully believe that annual passes will be available in the first day, like the launch day, because I think that it gives them such an ability to hit that point. So I kind of thought that was a little bit of a, like maybe an immature way to see things, you know, and I always try to remember Disney makes magic, but they're a business that makes magic, and business comes before the magic, and attendance is a big part of that business.
I've seen you, or I've heard you say before too, like, Disney isn't just going to, you know, walk away from that kind of money. They're not just going to say, you know what, we don't need it. It's fine. We're going to, all these APs, we're just going to cancel them. And, you know, I guess we'll just have to forget that money. No, it doesn't work that way.
That would be insane.
Yeah, I understand completely.
Yeah, so let's do this. We've kind of talked about, you know, what it's like to be an out-of-towner and almost feel like, well, maybe you might have a little bit of an advantage with the reservation system. I know a lot of people, and I think this is a very valid concern. This is what my concern would be if I was an out-of-towner. I would be worried about, all right, in Disneyland in particular, because the cost is so much higher than World, I would be worried about, I have 5 vacation days. I don't want to buy a ticket for my travel days. So I have 3 days to rip the park. I want to buy a 3-day ticket. But if I'm not staying on property, can I really assure myself that if I put that in my calendar, that I can get a reservation, a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, boom, 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 right in a row? Or even worse, can I get a reservation like a Friday, Saturday, and Sunday and travel out on Thursdays and Mondays? So I think that is the biggest fear that I would have if I'm putting myself in the remote guest sort of experience. But I think that when we look at the local folks and the way that the ticketing is going to work, I think the reservation system can actually be like a really good thing for everybody. And I know that a lot of us are bummed out about, but I love going randomly. I think random will return, but I think right now we should all just be in a mindset of, lucky to have whatever we have, and not like, oh, Disney, give us something. Like just in life in general, you know what I mean? Like just, I will be lucky to just be able to walk my dogs again and not feel like I'm getting ready to go scuba diving by the time I put on all my equipment just to go around the block so my neighbors don't shame me for being the guy that doesn't have a mask on. I want to be like, calm down. I live 8 doors down. I forgot to grab it. But the thing that I feel the reservation system will sort of neutralize things a little bit. And now that Disney's able to sort of put like sort of try to take that audience and dissect it up to where, okay, let's say today we can have, and I'm just going to go with a small number because it's easy to break down. Let's say we can have 10,000 people in the park today. Well, we should probably give up 40% of those. So 4,000 people to our APs. But we know that we currently have like 1,000 people staying at the hotel. So we're at 5,000. So let's take that extra 5,000 and just put it up on our ticketing website for locals or people abroad. And then as we get closer, if we realize that we haven't got as many bites as we want to, right at the end, let's just go ahead and open up another 500,000 because say we only got 3,000 ticket buyers. And I know I'm doing a very small number of 10,000, but it's just mathematically such an easy number to break down in percentages. I think that reservation system kind of gives everybody a fair shake at this thing that's going to be rapidly in demand.
And as not a out of market person, I feel like the anxiety that AP out of towners would have is very similar. And you'll remember this. This is the same kind of anxiety I had with the opening of Galaxy's Edge, right? Where you knew there was going to be a reservation system to get in the park.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, okay, like when do I reserve my hotel? Like when do I fly in? What days is it going to be available? Am I going to get iced out if I go for this day or this day? So there was so many questions leading up to that, that opening. And then as we saw, it actually went pretty smooth. I mean, Disneyland's, it was pretty rough. Walt Disney World was also rough, but I think this is where being a student of both of the parks in general comes into play, because all you really have to do is look at what Walt Disney World has done, because they are allotting so many APs and so many people in just standard tickets, every single day. And I was watching it. I would be watching, WDNT.com all
Hard
day,
to get out of your mouth
every
right?
day because you need it. And you would just see like, oh man, all tickets are sold out for this day. It seemed like the last 2 months of last year were just instant sellouts. Every single day they were booked. So you can tell they have the system in place for how many people they can get in the gates and how they can make it work for everybody. And so far it's been pretty smooth. So I think they'll have a smart rollout in terms of how that reservation system is going to work for everybody and make it fair.
Yeah, one of my favorite Walt Disney World channels is Mickey Views. And Braden was showing last week, like, hey, every day right now is green. There's availability for everybody to get in. And we're rolling into the spring months, which normally, once February gets kind of halfway done, somebody somewhere is on a spring break. So that's, prime time vacation for families that have the means to sort of dip out of that Chicago land weather and get some nice Disney World weather. So it does seem like it's been pretty fair, but let's move over to this. So I'm a firm believer that the annual pass program, they will do everything they can to launch that with a reopening of the park. I don't think that they want to get rid of all that income that's been a big part of the golden age of Disneyland here. It's had the money flowing. They've designed the merchandise, the food, the attractions, the seasonal offerings, like everything caters to this idea of you want to come once a month, once a quarter, bare minimum. And if you're somebody that comes once a week, well, welcome aboard. We'll have you when we can fit you in. So I think that what I'd love to talk about now is I believe we would look at a 50 days seems maybe kind of tight on when the park would reopen. Because after all, last year, I believe it was somewhere like 55, 57 days when they said we're going to reopen for the 65th anniversary. I believe that the 50, below 50 seems really, really tight to me because the build up of wanting to get into the park is even greater. And also they have a lot of ticketing things to work out. 100 days feels like maybe too much heads up. So my guesstimation would be somewhere between 50 and 100 days we'll get a press release that says this is the day. And there will be a huge amount of time between the two, which is a big reason why I was laughing at the March 14th. They're going to reopen Disneyland for shopping. I think that they will go that big because the moment that press release gets typed, before it even gets published, it will leak out. And this will be essentially like probably somewhere in the ballpark of like $10 to $20 million of free media buyout, right? Like every newspaper, every media outlet, going over into new media, every YouTube channel, every podcast, anybody that covers this or covers, traveling, this is going to be one of the biggest freebies that the company ever gets in the world of marketing and advertising. You're going to want to milk that out for quite some time.
It's funny to me because the company that can keep, what's the baby's name? His name is Grogu. They kept that secret until the very day it aired.
Yeah.
So it's hard to believe that same company has such a hard time when it comes to the park news, because it seems like stuff just leaks like a constant drip, which is fine by me because I love it.
But don't you feel like that a lot of that is by design? Like the union statement about food and beverage returning for a food festival in DCA happens on the 20th anniversary, when, let's be honest, it was the saddest 20th anniversary other than Disneyland's 65th anniversary. I dare you to say an anniversary that was sadder than DCA's 20th anniversary. So it was a real like bait and switch, really, I think.
Yeah. And it's funny too, because they're going to capitalize on it regardless.
Sure, and they should.
Whenever they decide to release that information, it's going to be a feeding frenzy. And because you've seen how the demand is there.
Oh,
people are ready. They are so ready. So this thing is going to explode like a powder keg as soon as people are going to be booking trips left and right.
100%. And what I think is going to be interesting is, so let's say that you have somewhere between 50 and 100 days to get the media's attention. If you also had 1 million customers that you want to serve up a product, that's also a really free way to market like parks reopening, and then maybe wait, 10 business days, 20 business days, wait till you go over to Google Trends and you see that spike start to fall down like GameStop. And then you just go, okay, here's the deal. Annual passes, we'll be doing reservations for those. Like you can book those like next Tuesday or whatever. And I judge a lot on Disneyland on looking at it as a practical business, but I'm also a student of its history, and even more so its recent history. They could not have been any more fair about the rollout of Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. The fact that those 4-hour reservations were free was mind-blowing and really showed of Iger's tenure with the company of like, yo, we have the customers in our back pocket. Gouging them makes us look bad, and it's unnecessary. They are willing to give us their time, their money, and a big portion of their entertainment interest. So the fact that they just said, book it, it's free. That, I think, is the type of corporation that is going to be planning for how do we make the reopening of the park the most desirable thing that we've had in the last 25 years. How are we going to make that, obviously profitable for us, but we don't need to gouge people. We don't need to pull a trick on people. Like it's not a trap. Like they just want it. So how do we facilitate this and keep it fair? I think that the way that they wrote out Galaxy's Edge was unbelievable, because a greedier corporation could have really made each one of those 4-hour reservations like $500, and they would have sold just as many.
I remember hearing that announcement about the reservations for Galaxy's Edge, and I was just like, all right, $1,000, let's do it. I'm in, whatever. And so then when they're like, oh no, it's just you can get a slot and that's it. And I was like, oh,
Yeah.
that's even better, even better.
And you were allowed to put, I think, 6 people on your reservation. And I was fortunate enough that a lot of people had an extra space and they just threw my name on the list. And then after a while, Disney stopped looking at the list. They just, as long as the person checked in with a license and a ticket, then you could bring 5 of whoever. So there were a couple of people like my good friend Alex, who was just out here with his family, and he just DM'd me. He's like, hey man, love the podcast. Got 2 spots open if you want to take a bud. And me and my friend Louie, we just filled out the end of their family's reservation, and we got to go in and rip and make new friends. So, this will obviously, getting into Disneyland will cost money. It won't be a free thing. Like, I don't want anybody to think that's what I'm predicting, but I think that same sort of like fairness will be there. So, everybody is just clawing to get this information, but I say it will be very clear when it comes out. It won't be a speculation. It won't be a rumor. I do feel like this will be something like the child's name, where it will drop, and it'll drop hard. Because I remember when people were predicting they were going to say they'd be open by July 17th for the 65th anniversary, I had people DMing me and said, you think it's going to happen today? You think it's going to happen today? I'm like, absolutely not. I give it 1% chance of happening. And then when it happened, I'm like, wow, I can't believe they're doing this. And I was actually in turn right, because I thought this is way too soon. They won't be able to do it. California's not going to let this float. And that actually happened to be what had happened. But I wanted to talk about the somewhere in the 50 to 100 days, just to let everybody know, you will have a heads up. They will make all of the ticketing and annual pass information, even if it's not available for opening day. I believe there will be an announcement that it will be rebirthing like after the first 60 days. Like, YouTubers will have a lot of great press releases to break down, but you will be able to get your core information from Disney. This won't be like a guessing game. It will be crystal clear, and it will be everywhere. You will know when we're ready, when they're ready, when it's happening, because it will be everywhere.
And also too, I want to point out real quick that have you noticed the jump between how far the app has come in this span of like a year and a half? Like, they keep working on it, and they keep adding different features and trying to figure out different ways of, okay, how is Disneyland going to work in the future? Are we going to have fast passes completely on the phones? Are we going to do away with the ticket system like Walt Disney World? Like, how are we going to do this? And it seems like they're really trying to think ahead and utilize the application more, because everybody has a cell phone in their pocket.
Sure.
So they know the easier we can make this in this application, the easier it'll be for everybody. So that's just something too that I think is a phenomenal thing to look forward to.
Everybody has a cell phone in their pocket, or a mobile, like a smartphone in their pocket, except for my YouTube moderator, Jeff, who still carries a flip phone. And when he showed it to me, I'm like, can I just touch it? Like, I just want to, like, I love antique equipment. So this is what I believe that they're doing right now. I could almost assure you that at the headquarters, at Team Disney Anaheim, there are 2 war rooms. There is a war room on, let's use this time where we're not like burdened by tens of thousands of guests every day coming and going. Let's perfect this app. Let's get this figured out, because now's the perfect time to do that. And then there's a second war room on how do we make annual pass holders and ticketing work for the future. And literally, just how I said that the DCA Food Fest has the potential to be the best food festival ever because it has no attraction distraction. Like, it's only food, so they can put a cafe table wherever they want to. I mean, you might literally be able to eat your snacks sitting on the edge of Monument Valley, right? Like, just looking at the Cadillac Mountain Range. Like, it could be the best thing ever because that's the only ticket in town. I feel like right now there's got to be, because they're a smart company and they're always trying to use everything and maximize it. There has to be a team that is just trying to get that app and that ticketing perfected. And I still feel like we are probably looking at all the vaccine news, and the new administration ordered 300 million shots. So there's technically enough shots coming for like every American. They believe that will start to get distributed like April, June. I feel like somewhere in the summer region, we're looking good for a semi return to normal. They have the time, man. They have the time to get this ticketing situation all figured out. So I guess as we move on to our next topic, I just want to tell everybody, like, the rollout, I believe, should be pretty crystal clear. There should be lots of heads up, like, this is the date that reservations go on. This is the date that APs happened. You know, it will be like a press release, just like the Star Wars Trading Post. You know, hey, this day, if you're a Legacy Pass holder, you can book your reservations, which will happen on these days. And then if you're the public, you can go on this day. Like, it will be that same kind of crystal clear, like, here's all the dates that you need to know, boom, and the media will run wild with it.
And you get a complimentary net when you go to the outpost, just FYI. And Mark, you're forgetting the third war room, which is AMC Theater at Downtown Disney, third gate.
Third gate.
You heard it here, folks.
Toad World.
Passing on. Toad World. Toad Land, because that's what he deserves.
Yeah, World of Toad.
Guy.
World of Toad. They're going to take the AMC Theater and turn it into a Mr. Toad Land. All right, so let's do this. We've talked about sort of the pregame, the tailgating, you know, the 100 days somewhere leading up to it open. Let's talk about right now. Let's take a lot of anxiety out of people's brains. Let's talk about what the first 100 days of Disneyland looks like. We already know that it's going to be a reservation system. We could probably easily guess, if we study what we learned from Star Wars Galaxy's Edge rollout and what we've seen them already, you know, talk about in the past, there will be a preferential treatment given to hotel guests, DVC club members who pay a lot of money, then they deserve any preferential treatment they get. So obviously, like any company, you know, if you go on a flight, people that buy the first class ticket, they're paying 5 times as much as you, so they're going to get at least twice the service. So those are things that are just hard business, and you can't fault the company for that because they're probably going to have been closed for 15 to 16 months. So yeah, if you book the Grand Californian for a week, you're probably going to get a little bump to the front of the line, and I say you deserve it because that is not an inexpensive week of your life. But I think for everybody else, will you be able to get there on opening day? Maybe not. That might be a hard ticket to get. But will you be able to get in the first week or first 30 days? I almost guarantee you everybody will be able to get a free shot to get in that first month.
I'm going to go ahead and project 0. Nobody's going. Nobody cares. They're over it. It's going to be a ghost town. Ghost town, Brickey. That's what I'm calling, just to be a contrarian.
There you
ghost
go.
Town.
Hot take. That's why I had him on here. I don't like people that always agree with me, so that's why I had Tony on here. He's going to predict that everybody will be down the street at knots.
No, I agree completely with everything you're saying. I think and it's only fair. Total fair play. If you make a reservation at one of the resorts, you're going to guarantee yourself a entrance into the parks, and I think that makes sense. So it'll be a while, especially for out of towners. I'm saying it could happen. You could probably get in, but I'm going to say it's probably going to be highly unlikely. That'll probably be a month or two before out of towners you get to see that trickle in effect.
And I'm going to say this: if you're a YouTuber or an Instagrammer, if you have some sort of like Disney following, all right, now I'm speaking to a very small elitist bunch. I understand why I want to be there on the very, very first day, because it would make my channel pop. And I've been doing the podcast weekly. Like, I've been trying to keep the magic alive. And dare I say, when a lot of other people kind of left Disneyland and went to the park that was open, or people that had never uploaded a Knott's video before, like, Knott's is the greatest thing in the world. Like, I use this time to like double down on my love for Disneyland. So there is a 100% business objective for me being in there on day one. But what I would say to a family of 4 from Riverside, I don't know that you actually want to be there day one or the first week, because even though there'll be a heavy, like, emotional thing that's happening, it's going to be a little bit of a disaster, right? Like, it's going to be a little rusty. It's going to be a little bit weird. And, depending on what the new availability is and pricing, like, it might just be one of those things, unless you have to have that FOMO bragging rights, it might be like a really good thing to watch on YouTube, sort of figure out what it looks like and be like, I'll give them 2 weeks to kind of figure it out. Because I remember seeing some of the first people that went to Walt Disney World. It looked beyond bizarre.
Yeah. And I mean, I know, I could have swore you were going to say the reason you want to go is to go crush rides, because that's, as we all know, that's what you love to do. crush rides nonstop.
Hey, I'm
So
being honest with you, Tony. When I go back, I just as a person right now, I don't really feel comfortable riding indoor rides. And I've talked about this with my wife, who is a high risk COVID person with a lifelong illness that she's had. My objective to go back is to walk the park, see the sights, hear the sounds, sit on some benches, ride the Mark Twain, ride the Disneyland Railroad. Like, I'm not going back and trying to do Haunted Mansion and Pirates and Small World. Like, I love those attractions. I've been blessed to do them all 100 times. I'm looking for the ambiance. I don't, at this moment, until we're at a more heavily vaccinated area, like, I just see it as an unnecessary risk to go in these small spaces where you touch the same things as people, breathing in that same sort of like, Las Vegas oxygen that they pump into the room. So, I'm going with a very, very different agenda than most people.
yeah, and I think that's the realistic way to look at it, because yeah, that first opening week or two, it's going to be a madhouse trying to get on anything. So with your mindset of like, hey, I just want to get some magic feels in and sit on this bench and just talk to my channel and hang out. That's I think that's the vibe. That's the perfect outlook.
I just want to heckle Philander, who I keep joking with him that they're going to put him back in the ticket booth because they don't need VIP tours right now. So I just keep saying, I just want to buy a ticket from you in the ticket booth. He's like, if you keep saying this, our friendship will be terminated, which is all the more reason for me to keep needling him about it. But I think that, the first couple of weeks will be a disaster. It'll be the hottest ticket in town. It'll be like Disneyland is a brand new thing in California. But as we slowly get away from that sort of that ground zero moment of everybody trying to get in, the normalization will happen. So the first of the 100 days will be absolutely Cocoa for Cocoa Puffs. And then 100 day, you will figure out what that new normal feels like. You'll understand how the reservation system flows, the days are easy to get in, the days are easy to get out. If they do end up doing a day splitting, a lot of people have kind of freaked out about that because they're like, they're going to charge us more for less. I feel like if day splitting happens, which is a term where they could divide the park up into multiple sections, hotel guests will still get a all day rip, because you just can't sell somebody a hotel room and be like, well, do you want to be in the morning or do you want to be in at night? So I believe you'll ultimately get 3 different tickets: a comparable to the old price all-day ticket, a AM ticket, and an afternoon into the PM ticket. And I don't think that's the worst thing in the world, because that will give up more reservations. Obviously, that ticket just can't be the same price as the all-day. So if you're trying to do this on a budget, that might reflect a budget. But I also think that, Tony, what I believe could happen, and I'm not saying this is for the first 100 days, but I want to sort of transition into what the rest of that first 6 months looks like up to the first year, the year anniversary of 1 year back into Disneyland. If they do day splitting, or if they don't do day splitting, Disney's objective is to keep the park as comfortable as possible. They want to have that number that they want to hit every day. I could see them sort of doing a park check around 2:00. They would have a couple of systems in place, like what is our walk up, what is our hotel reservations, how many APs cashed in on AP availability. And I almost feel like that if you're at a certain tier of AP, you'll be able to open up the Disney app, and there'll be a little like standby where you could possibly grab a standby spot. Because let's think about this from a business perspective. If today they only hit 20,000 people, but they're allowed to get to 25 or 30,000 people, what corporation would be like, well, I'm kind of glad that those last 10,000 people didn't show up and buy some merchandise and buy some snacks or buy a hard ticket. Like, the standby line to get into Disneyland could be a premium perk to higher AP levels. And it would be very smart on them to say, okay, we have thousands of fans, hundreds of thousands of fans that live in the Tri-County area. If we're a little bit short, what's the problem in putting 1,000 standbys, 5,000 standbys up, get in some people from Orange County, LA, Riverside, San Bernardino to cruise in and sort of backfill that second half of the park. I don't see why that wouldn't be a thing. And, you know, if I'm able to have 4 reservations over 90 days, but also kind of know that, like, you know, standbys are pretty good to get on Tuesday, Wednesdays, and sometimes Thursdays, to me, that sounds like a perfect flow.
If it would be like the equivalent of checking wait times for rides, where you're just like, oh man, it looks like there might be an opening pretty soon. I'm just gonna keep an eye on this. Oh, boom, there is. Cool, I'm in. I'll be there in an hour. I think that would be such a fantastic idea. They have to do that. I would imagine you gotta.
Well, if they're willing to do things like, you know, have like tickets that, and I always say annual pass holders because we don't know what the next term is. I'm not trying to clickbait you. A lot of people got mad at me because I was using the term annual pass. I'm like, how do you describe something that doesn't have a name yet? You use the name that everybody understands, and then you call it Disney Passport or Disney Membership Club, you know, whatever they come up with. Like, I don't know how you find a better term than annual pass, but they've doubled down on abandoning that term. So we'll see what the next term is. But I see that there will be many ways for this program to be beneficial, to work for the park's future needs. And let's just be honest, Disney was getting a little bit too greedy, selling too many passes, selling too many tickets. There were times that you were in there just because it's the thing that you love doing, but you didn't necessarily love the vibe that you got that day. Like, I'm cool with a little bit less access if I know that I'm getting a quality of visit versus a quantity of visits. Like, what good is it to go 7 days a week if you're miserable versus being able to go twice, 3 times, 4 times a month? If when you do go, you can actually stretch your legs and you know, it will still be busy, but not that sort of complete human bottlenecking where you're like, all right, I guess I got to go with the flow because there's no way to make this turn around the rivers of America right before Fantasmic's getting ready to kick off.
And Mark, I wanted to ask you, what is your vibe on ticketed events going forward?
Oh.
Are we going to see them go away? Are we going to see them, you know, obviously something's got to change with those events, but the park opens, let's say there's enough time to maybe fit in an Oogie Boogie Halloween bash. How do you think that goes going forward?
So I don't think that we will see hard ticket events in the first 6 months. I don't see it definitely don't see it in the first 100 days. The first 100 days, the objective is service as many people as possible and let people know we're back, it's comfortable, it's familiar, and that they're welcome here. Like, the first 100 days, the objective would be any good business, especially a business that prides themselves on being one of the best Fortune 500s as far as customer service goes. Operation, first 100 days, relieve anxiety. Get anxiety down and let people know that this is a safe space, a comfortable space that they can easily go out to with the family, with the kids, with their partner. Like, let's just do that. Then I would say that the 6 months is the slow step toward normalcy, right? People are now on their third, their fourth visit. We have people coming in from out of town. We're understanding the flow of how it goes. So I think that to get into our next topic, what will the second half of 2022, all on the assumption that we open at some time between June and September of 21. Once we roll past that, hard ticket events will be even more revered than before. Because if we're day splitting the park, if we're using a reservation system, the after dark events fit like a glove into this new technology, this new sort of supply and demand version of Disneyland. And I have to say, to anybody that's not an AP holder, whether you're local or regional, if you're regional and you want to do a couple days at the park, make sure that one of those days is an after dark event. And if you're a local and you can only afford to go like once a year, make sure the one time a year you go is an after dark event, because you get a much emptier Disneyland with the theming and the vibe turned way up. And I just find those to be the best experience possible. And I kind of feel like the first 100 days will feel like an After Dark event where you just don't know what the theme is. Oh, I know what the theme is. Return to normal. Because I feel like the hard ticket events, it's an easy way to get somebody like me who's already committed to spending $1,400 a year to buy more tickets at $100 a pop. In the surveys that they sent out, there were lots of questions about, do you need to get discounts on After Dark events? I do not see those going away. In fact, I see those being on the uptick, but I don't think that we'll see like a Oogie Boogie until 2022. And I take this largely, what did we see in the first 1 year of Walt Disney World? No holiday shows, no, just the idea is just like get people in, get them back to normal. But I have a feeling that this fall, we will see World start to do a little bit of its holiday offerings, but Disneyland just won't quite be ready for it. That's my hunch on how this could all go.
Yeah, it's funny because World, they're ready to go. They're just like, get our cast members in, let's do some shows, let's get some fireworks, let's get. That's fine, but yeah, Disneyland is a whole nother thing, and it seems they are very patient and they want to make sure that they're doing everything by the book and at the right time, right? So
State of California.
It's exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah.
I didn't expect Oogie Boogie's Bash, this year, but as much as I would love it, but yeah, I think that's definitely the trajectory that we're headed in. Is it'll be some time still, but man, I tell you what, I love the ticketed events. So the
good.
sooner they come back, the better.
Yeah, they really are, and I think that will feel very normal. It'll be very easy to get in there. And I had somebody leave a comment like, well, they could never do day splitting. How could you get people to leave the park? I'm like, they've been doing this for years now. They've done it hundreds of times where, you wristband the second people. If you don't have a wristband, you got to usher those folks out. Like, they know how to turn over the park. And let's not forget, 99% of the guests are on their best behavior. Disneyland is the only place in the world where a thin rope or masking tape, people are like, whoa, there's tape. Can I step on the other side of this masking tape on the ground, or is this a wall? Like, it's kind of unbelievable how people that will throw their car in any parking space imaginable, regardless of what it should or should not be. They'll be like, there's blue tape on the ground. Let's pause here. Let's figure out what this blue tape is trying to tell me.
Yeah, I am always on my best behavior, and I think my thing that I'm really curious to see going, when the parks reopen is just that how different it'll feel with all the dividers and all of those markings and everything. Like, you think it'll take away from it, or do you think because just being there will be enough to where you can kind of look past it?
I think that when, I watched some of the earlier videos of Walt Disney World, it was jarring. But what we have going for us is many of us that are hardcore fans and love YouTube, we already know what to expect, right? We already know that if you ride the Jungle Cruise, that you're going to be divided up into sections with what I refer to as the bad joke shields. I feel like there will already be a system in place that we're kind of accustomed to. It's weird that Chapek was already saying that he feels like by the second half of 22, they'll start to pull back on the regulations with the mask and stuff. Like, I don't really know how, when you have only 50% of your resorts open in a country, you could already predict when you're going to get on the other side of things. I found that to be sort of like a really weird bit of information to flow out there. But I guess it's also maybe, the self-esteem of the company trying to project like, hey, I know that you don't enjoy this. You won't always be in this moment. I saw you sort of dissipating there. Am I talking to you, or am I talking to Pepper's ghost right now?
Yeah, this is the thousandth ghost of Haunted Mansion. That's no, it's one of those. These Zoom backgrounds they're not so great.
Tell me about it.
It's not Pepper's ghost quality.
Tell me about it. As a guy who built a green screen studio in his home, so I kind of think that that's where people's mindsets should be at. You're going to get to sort of recap, you're going to get a big heads up of when things are returning. They're going to beat you over the head, figuratively, on how ticketing, reservations, and APs return. Unless you really have a justifiable reason to be there in the first 10 days, I would go towards the back set of the first 100. But I think that first 6 months is going to be sort of a return to whatever feels like normal. And then I think that it will be the back half of 22, whatever our year anniversary is. Let's just say that they're able to get open for Saturday, July 17th, 2021, Saturday or Sunday, July 17th, 2022. It won't be like all of a sudden that day they drop balloons. We've been open for a year, but you'll start to see like, okay, Oogie's coming back. We're doing, holiday parties. Like it'll start to slowly transition. It's going to be a gradient, and I believe that any YouTube channel, any creator that is spreading some sort of like hard gap rumor, I would not trust that or that person at all, because they're not going to sneak attack you with it. And also too, like, if you can just read all the information, take a deep breath, understand it from a business perspective, understand it from a fan's perspective, resetting the annual pass program, it's not a conspiracy against you as an individual. It is really something that you could tell that they had wanted to do. It's a 40-year-old system. And, the best thing about the pandemic for all of us, me and my life included, the pandemic gave a lot of us a wide space. If you were still able to make money and you, God willing, you were able to keep your health, the pandemic gave a lot of us a space to reboot certain parts of our businesses, reboot certain parts of our careers, reboot some of the relationships that we have in our life. And, why would Disney be any different than any of us to use this moment to say, okay, while we don't have 50,000 people a day out at the resort, how do we hard reset this to build to last for the next 65 years? And I don't think that's a bad thing. In fact, I think that's a very smart thing that should be applauded.
Yeah, I think the takeaway from anything that we've talked about today is that the outlook is very good, right?
Yeah.
We've got a lot of stuff to look forward to. Pretty much from here on out, any news that we're going to get from the parks is going to be good news. I mean, where it seemed like last year, oh man, they canceled this project, or oh man, this ride's going away. Oh, looks like this ain't showing up at Epcot anymore. So I think this year we're going to go in the opposite direction. It'll be a slow drip. We're going to for sure get a concrete date on when everything is going to reopen for Disneyland and how that's going to work. And then slowly but surely, we'll get back to normal. It'll take a while, but we'll get there.
I would like to sort of, with the last little bit, and I could only assume that this far in, only the hardest of hardcore are still listening. But I want to thank you, Tony, for coming on, because this as our relationship has sort of evolved over the last handful of years. Tony was a listener of my podcast, Adventures in Design. We met at a South by Southwest down in Austin, Texas, in the most random of ways. I was driving around recording a podcast while I was driving a car. I saw him walking down the street with a poster tube and said, oh, we talk a lot about design. And I was a revered poster maker, and so was my co-host at the time, the great Billy Ballman of Delicious Design Studio.
Delicious Design League.
I knew that I had a word wrong in there. Go check him out. Phenomenal designer. But, Tony was somebody who looked like who consumed the world that we talked about, threw him in the backseat of the car, drove him and two of his buds to where they were trying to go to get some collectibles. And that's really how I love to build my content. I have lots of friends that are on the inside of Disney, and I was once an artist for the Wonderground Gallery. And I know people that are making sort of the moves on the other side of the fence, backstage, if you will. But I really appreciate having folks like Tony to sort of, how often do I call you or text you and bounce something off of your perspective and say, hey, from somebody who listens to a lot of podcasts, from somebody who watches a lot of YouTube, how's this feel to you?
Yeah, pretty often. And I think one of my favorite moments, I think that was the end of 2019 when we were in Austin for MondoCon, right?
Yeah.
Was that we were in the hotel room, and we spent like probably 2 hours just talking like Disney stuff, like in the hotel lobby.
Hours.
And just like it was so fun just to talk to another person. So I think that has that same passion, that same interest in this particular part of the Disney empire, right? Because this is very park centric. We're not really, I mean, we can enjoy the movies. I love Marvel and Star Wars. And what's it?
You can enjoy the movies. I don't watch them.
Yeah, Mark doesn't watch. He's the only one he's seen is Coco. But,
such a great movie.
Yeah, so I think it's fantastic when I first heard about this Club 1313 becoming a real thing, and seeing the community just rally behind it and come together, and having like-minded people that are able to nerd out about the same stuff. And So it's a lot of fun. So I was very excited for Mark, and I'm happy to be here. And I'll talk Disney anytime of the day.
Well, I appreciate that, bud. And from this is sort of maybe my fourth go around in life on building something. I grew up in a band, became a poster designer, artist that had a pretty good following. Did adventures in design, still do it, love it. That will always be like my true love is doing AID. But my love of Disney was sort of an extension of what I was doing with my day job with the podcast. And I realized, not everybody loves this topic and not everybody can see it from sort of the same intellectual, artistic way. But what I'm loving about Club 1313, and this was always my vision for doing Disney content, is that it should be fan-built, fan-driven. And I'm not talking about fans of me. I never, ever use the word fans or followers. I always refer to everybody as my friends. But I do believe that what we're doing with our channel and having everybody over there hanging out is that I'm trying to build a fan-driven community where it's not all my opinions and all my elitist lifestyle. It's like, hey, I feel like every time I turn the camera on or I hit record or I break down a news script, I feel like I'm doing it with everybody else. And so I really appreciate you coming on and doing this today. And I say to people that consume my content, get used to seeing a lot of other club members sitting in that monitor or sitting across from me, because I just feel like there's something that is kind of missing in the Disney independent creator content. And also from Disney's perspective, like Disney, and I've said this before when I interviewed like heads of ABC, you never need to tell us where to go book the vacation. We know, and it weakens the product. And a lot of channels that I enjoy, it's very like singular, like this is my vision on it. And I literally want to try to build something where it's like a little bit more like community, a little bit more fan driven, different videos produced with different partners of Club 1313, and, really try to build something that feels like you're represented in it, which is kind of a fun thing to do in a moment where Disney's redesigning the park to make sure that all people feel more represented. I mean, we saw Magic Happens, the poor parade that only got 2 weeks, but was like putting a mirror down Main Street USA of everybody standing on the sidewalk for the first time in Disney history could see themselves represented in that parade. The complete redesign of Splash Mountain and also the retheming of sections of the Jungle Cruise. It's kind of neat to be trying to do something similar to that from the fan perspective when that's what the corporation's objective is, headed into the next couple of years.
And I've always appreciated your point of view too, because here's the thing, and not everybody knows this, but I went to Walt Disney World as a kid. Mm-hmm. I was probably 5 or 6. My parents took me with my grandparents and I had an awesome time. But again, I wasn't that Disney guy. Like I liked it, but it wasn't. I liked the movies. That was it.
Yeah,
that's fine. And it wasn't until way later in life. So I think it was 2015. I came out to Disneyland for the first time, and I went with a friend, and I had fun. But it wasn't like it didn't hit me until Mark had his first tour with a group of AID guys.
Unofficial tour. Don't get mad at me, Disney.
Unofficial tour. No Philander Land.
It was the same as a church group or Boy Scouts going together, or a basketball club going together. It was unofficial.
Yeah, we had a little get together, and that was when it kind of clicked for me, because Mark is really good at giving you his perspective, but not like forcing you to understand and like every single thing. He is giving you his worldview of Disneyland and the design and the beauty and the architecture and the artwork and everything. He's giving it to you in a package, and he's kind of saying, well, here's all this cool stuff. Do what you want with it, right? So I think after that trip, that's when I fell in love, and that's when I finally understood exactly his passion for it, then became my passion for it. And you've all seen that it's intoxicating. Once you get that passion in you, you want to give it to other people, and other people look at you like, this why is this adult talking to you about Disneyland? He doesn't have any kids. What's wrong with him? But that's just that is just the honest truth, which is that I think there's a lot of us out there that now that we have this outlet to talk and enjoy this content, it can only get bigger and better from there.
So question for you. When you walk through Disneyland with someone such as myself that took the time to study how it was built, the perfect sight lines, like literally my goal was to reverse engineer the magic and how because it's such a great entertainment trick. It's one of the greatest things you could ever experience. So when you did that, like, meet up with me and like 6 other people at DCA and Disneyland for the day, when you went out to Walt Disney World by yourself solo the next time, were you able to just then see it from a whole different perspective?
Yeah, absolutely. So it was right after that trip was the first time I'd gone back to Walt Disney World since I was a little kid. And I took my sister. She had never been to any of the Disney parks. She was like, "Why do you like Disney? It's for babies. Like, I don't get it. Like, this is stupid. I just like Harry Potter. I just want to go to Universal Studios." But I'm like, I'm not going to Universal and not going to Disney World if it's
Yeah.
right down the street.
Yeah.
So I made her go. I forced her to go, and she didn't want to go. And then I took her, and I was able to hodgepodge together little bits of your tour and try to give her that worldview, that broader view, and then she fell in love with it too. And so I think what happened was, after going on your tour, and you have a very good way of framing everything. Now, I do art. I'm creative. I do a lot of design. I read a lot of books.
You have
a
a phenomenal art collection too.
Yeah. So it's like, because you're able to frame it that way, and then it clicked in my head of, oh yeah, this is literally everything I've ever come to know in the art world, all applied in one spot.
Yeah.
So when I took her to Disney World, I was like, I might not have known everything about Disney World at the time, but I was able to say, look at this, man. Look up, look at this, check this out. Look at this forced perspective here. Look at how they color grade the painting on the castle so that it looks this way. And then I think that's what really will kind of open people's eyes. So yeah, it totally did. It was a huge influence.
It's so much more to me. The hidden Mickeys and like the numeric fun facts is the low hanging fruit. To me, it's one of the, if you are a student of art and design and what makes good art and design, it's one of the rare times in your life where you can walk into composition and understand that trees are grown and pruned to create a perfect view for lots of people standing in a very similar area. Like, the real world is just kind of a hodgepodge thing of like, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But because this is a controlled environment, and it is, we are guests stepping on the stage, a show that's being performed by the cast, because it is a theater set. There's just sometimes when the perfection, you're just like, man, it doesn't happen that often in the real world, but I know that I can always count on it to happen here. Tony, thank you so much for having this conversation with me. Thank you for being a founder of Club 1313. I appreciate it. And to anybody who's made it this far at home, well, I appreciate it. And I also hope that today's conversation just kind of maybe like took a little bit of your anxiety out. The goal today was to record a weekly version of the 13th hour where, we just took some of the anxiety down on ticket buying, on how you're going to fit into the new system, and just know there will be a place for you. You'll just need to show it with some patience and perseverance. And I do believe it will work out. And, at this moment, if Christmas 2022 is when things feel really, really normal, and like, day one of 23 is when the money's flowing, everything's back to normal, we're like a year plus away from it. And after the last year that we just did, that doesn't seem that far away anymore. Tony Mendez, Chicago, Illinois, Walt Disney World annual pass holder, one-time redeemed. Thank you so much for being on the show today.
Anytime, Mark. I appreciate it.
And to the rest of you, until I see you in Disneyland on opening day, the first 100 days, the first 6 months, the first year, or the backside of 2022, I'll see you back here on the channel with more Disneyland news. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for liking this video, maybe leaving a comment, and most of all, please subscribe to the channel, because you're going to want to take advantage of one of my live streams from the park or giving you the week in Disneyland news. And the worst fear on pre-recording this, because my schedule's a little crazy this week, is sometime this week they announced that tickets are on sale. Now this is all outdated news.